The next thing to look before building an optical network is what are the other additional components that are required to build a network which are commonly used in the network. So you would want to either control the amplitude or intensity of light, and that's done using splitters, couplers, amplifiers, attenuators, isolators, and circulators, of which you know about. So of these components, you already know about amplifiers. At first, we also talked about Raman amplifiers now. We will talk about the other components. Uh, as far as the other property of light that needs to be controlled, that is the phase. So the phase control can be done either with what are called as phase shifters and phase modulators. Now there are different kinds of phase shifters possible. In fact, phase modulator is also a phase shifter. Um, Phase modulator, of course, we have studied in detail when we did modulators. But a simple way of making phase shifter is to wind a fiber around a piezoelectric transducer, and you apply a voltage to the transducer. The size changes, the length changes, and so the fiber length also changes. So we are not going to do much details of this phase shifter, but we will do the details of polarization control. You know, we had polarizers, polarization splitters, combiners, polarization controllers, and we would also like to do wavelength control. So we are trying to find components that can control the different aspects of the electromagnetic wave, which is amplitude, phase, polarization, and wavelength. Okay. So let's start with the first element, which is a 2 by 2 directional coupler. So this is for amplitude control, right? So this element is essentially for the amplitude control of power. Let's say you have a certain power and you want to split into multiple ports, and that's where you would use a coupler. Okay, it's called the version of the coupler that we are going to study in detail is fused biconical tapered fiber coupler. The way it is made, the way it functions is you have two input ports, P1, port 1 and port 2, and you have two output ports, port 3 and port 4. And you could put power inside port 1 and 2 and get it at the output 3 and 4 in a controlled manner, right? So how do you make this, the taper, the most popular way of making a fused biconical tapered coupler is taking two single mode fibers, twisting the single mode fibers, okay, and then you melt it by putting it over an arc, and then you pull it. Okay, so you twist, melt, pull, and when you do this process, you can basically control the power coupled between the output ports. You can change the power by controlling the length of this coupling region. So this is the region. So the process is explained after the coupling happens. This is how the coupler actually looks like. So you have the two single mode fibers. These are the two core of the single mode fibers. And when you had tapered it, the cores are actually merged in this region, right? So there is a power transfer between the two cores. And by controlling the length over which this transfer of power happens, you can control the power in the two outputs. And you can actually, in practical scenarios, you can calculate. I'll tell you now how to calculate this coupling length, but in reality, when people fabricate these couplers, they monitor the power in port 3 and port 4 in situ, and while they are doing the tapering process, and they stop at a point when they have arrived at the desired power value, and the whole process is automated. Okay. Now this coupling process is sensitive to wavelength, so then that's advantageous to us because we can use the same process for making wavelength couplers also. Okay. So let's look at a little more detail of the principle of working and how do we design different couplers. So let's say the electric field in the port 1 is E1 and the corresponding power is P1. Corresponding to port 2 and port 3, let's say it's E3, P3, E4, P4. For if the two fibers are exactly identical, then assuming that this port 2 has an input 0, we're not giving any power at the input to the port 2. the P3 as a function of Z, where Z is a variable that represents the coupling length. Okay, so Z is equal to L is the final length that you have fabricated. But this power that you get here is a function of this coupling length, and this is P1 0, which is P1 at Z equal to 0, cos square kappa Z, and the power in P4 is P1 0 sine square kappa Z. And what is this kappa? Kappa is something that we quantify as coupling coefficient, and it actually measures the strength of the interaction between the power in the two cores, okay, in the two fibers. It depends on the core diameter, cladding, core cladding, refractive index contrast. It depends on the separation between the cores here, right, when you started coupling the fiber, and also depends on wavelength of operation. Right, so we are not going into details of how to find this coupling coefficient, but let's say for a given set of fibers there is a certain kappa. Then for a given kappa, how do you now design a coupler? So you know P3Z is this, P4Z is this. If your Z, which means the coupling length, if you choose your coupling length to be either 0 or pi by kappa or 2 pi by kappa, or in fact m pi by kappa, where m is 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. Kappa Z, so for kappa Z is equal to, so for kappa Z is equal to m pi, if this condition is satisfied, then you have sine square kappa Z is equal to 0, which means P4 is 0. So entire power now appears in what is called as the bar port of port 1, and there is no power appearing at cross port. Assuming your kappa Z is equal to m pi. You choose a length such that Z equal to L, kappa L is equal to m times pi. This condition can be satisfied. What if you want to now push all the power from the bar port to the cross port? So all what you need to do is appropriately change your design such that your kappa Z is now m plus half pi. You choose kappa Z is equal to m plus half pi. It means that cos square kappa Z becomes 0. It means that there is no power in the bar port, all the power is in the cross port. Now, what if you want to change the coupling ratio? What if you want, let's say, 10% power in the cross port and 90% power in the bar port? All what you need to do is to alter your cos square value of cos square kappa Z and sin square kappa Z. That means alter your kappa Z such that you get the desired fraction in either port. For instance, if you make your Z is pi by 4 kappa or 3 pi by 4 kappa, etc. So in this case, what will happen? Your cos square kappa Z and sin square kappa Z are half each, which means that your P3 is P1 by 2 and P4 is also. So you made a 3 dB coupler. 3 dB coupler means 50-50 coupler, right? So this way, couplers of any desired coupling ratios can be fabricated. Now, how does this look like? So I've given I've brought a sample coupler here just to show you. So this is how the coupler is looking like. So all this is nicely packaged so that you are not really handling any of the fragile tapered fibers. So this is how a coupler is looking. So you have everything packaged. The tapered fiber is packaged in this steel nice holder. You have input port and you have the two output ports, and typically the coupling ratio is marked. In this case, it is marked as this white port is 95% and the blue port is 5%. Okay, which means if I put in power, let's say 1 milliwatt of power at the input, I will get at the output of this white output, I will get 95.95 milliwatt, and the remaining 0.05 milliwatt, I will get it in the blue port. Okay, and this is all coming with connectorized cable. So this is like a FC APC connector. So you can just push it in and start using in the experiment. We need to do some definitions here. The split ratio is the ratio with which the power gets split. The example that we considered had P2 as 0, but you could also have P2 not equal to 0. So correspondingly the relations change. But in any case, the split ratio is P3 divided by the power in the top port divided by P1 plus P2 into 100. Excess loss is because of the error in fabrication. What will happen is, if the tapering process is not really perfect, what will happen is some amount of power gets coupled back into the port 2, and that is return loss. Okay. So when you terminate the output ports, what is the power appearing in this port? When you send a certain power in port 1 is your return loss. So that those are the common parameters that you should always look for: a large value of return loss, a very small value of excess loss. The other important aspect that you need to think about, especially when you are trying to use phase modulated data, is that the process of making this directional coupler, in the whole process of making this directional coupler, you will realize that there is if you do the math in detail, which we are not doing right now, I am just showing you the result, you will realize that there is a phase change with coupling. So the transfer function of the coupler can be represented this way. The output electric fields E3 and E4 is related to the input electric field E1 and E2 as through this transfer matrix, which is root 1 minus elements are root 1 minus epsilon, j root epsilon, root 1 minus epsilon. Now what is this epsilon? Epsilon is nothing but the power, the fraction of power transferred from port 1 to this is so E3 is equal to square root of 1 minus epsilon E1 plus j root epsilon E2, right? So this is and E4 is equal to j root epsilon E1 plus root of 1 minus epsilon E2. So the power transferred from port 1 to port 4, corresponding electric field is square root of epsilon, right? So epsilon represents the power transferred from port 1 to port 4. Now if it's a 3 dB coupler, obviously this transfer function is represented this way. This idea becomes useful in a coherent receiver which we will do in our next module. So the point to note here is that there is a phase change of pi by 2 when you compare the two ports, in the sense that, let's say you send in a field at E1, in E3 you will get the fraction which is 1 by root 2 times E1 if it's a 3 dB coupler, but in E4 you will get j times 1 by root 2 E1. So there is a phase change of pi by 2 between the two ports between the two output ports of the coupler. So you send an electric field at one input port, it gets split between the two output ports with the phase change of pi by 2. This idea is going to be useful for building a 90-degree hybrid, an optical 90-degree hybrid, which will be used for a coherent receiver. How do you make a n by n coupler? A coupler which has n inputs and n output ports. You can extend the same design. So you take n fibers, you twist them all, then you do the melting or fusing, and then you do the tapering. So again, while the bundle is being tapered, you monitor the power at all the output ports, and you can optimize the procedure. So this is also called as a star coupler because you have n input ports and n output ports. The power from any input, you typically in a star coupler, is actually divided among all the output ports. So you send in a certain power here, it gets divided equally into all the output ports. So what would be the split loss with a n by n coupler? It will be minus 10 log of 1 by n because you have n divisions here. What will be the excess loss? Excess loss, just like in a directional coupler, we said it is the total power at the output divided by the total power at the input. How do you extend the same idea to make a wavelength division multiplexer? you latch on to the principle that the coupling ratio is a function of wavelength. So we'll make use of that idea to kind of use the same coupler design to make a wavelength division multiplexer. Now, what's a wavelength division multiplexer? It's a device where you go in with two lambdas. At the output, you can separate out the two colors. Very useful in a WDM system. Now, this is a reversible device, which means that you could go in with two wavelengths separately, and you in the two input ports, and you get the wavelengths combined in one of the ports. So it can be used as a multiplexer and a demultiplexer. What's the idea of design? As I said, the coupling coefficients are wavelength sensitive. So let's say kappa 1 and kappa 2 are the coupling coefficients at wavelengths lambda 1 and lambda 2. Let's assume kappa 1 L is m pi, and kappa 2 L we will force it to be m minus half pi, which means that if your kappa 1 L, if you are assuming as m pi, it means that the power in this port is P1, where P1 is the power corresponding to lambda 1, and the power in this port at lambda 2 wavelength, this is power in lambda 1 wavelength. Power in lambda 2 wavelength would be cos square of kappa 2L, but kappa 2L you have already assumed it is m minus half pi, so that is equal to 0. Okay. Similarly, because your choice of kappa 1 and L and kappa 2L, the power in the port 4 at lambda 1 wavelength is 0. But at lambda 2 wavelength is again P1, where P1 is the power in lambda. So, if P1 is a power in lambda 1 and P1 is also the power in lambda 2, you are sending the same power. So, this becomes equal to P1. So, this is how a wavelength division multiplexer can be.